There is a silent language we all communicate in, yet few of us ever learn to truly understand it. This language doesn't rely on words. It speaks through tension in the body, unsettling dreams, inexplicable emotions, and an instinctive sense that something just isn't right. Perhaps the most difficult part is noticing it most clearly in our relationships, particularly when someone simply doesn't belong in our lives. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, didn't limit his studies to the mind. He explored the soul. He viewed the unconscious not merely as a repository of forgotten memories, but as a shared collective dimension. From this deeper realm, warnings surface, patterns repeat, and signs emerge, subtle, strange, sometimes unsettling. When someone or something isn't in alignment with who we are meant to become, you may have experienced it. At first, everything seems perfect. They say the right things, smile at the right moments, and fit neatly into your plans, projections, and ideals. Yet a part of you remains tense. Your chest tightens, your energy drains like a candle losing oxygen. Your dreams turn chaotic, and anxiety creeps in for no apparent reason. You feel yourself slipping away, though you can't explain why. These experiences are not random. They are psychological signals that matter. Jung said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. The same principle applies to people. Being kind, attractive, or loving does not guarantee someone is right for you. And when they aren't, your unconscious mind will repeatedly signal the mismatch until you pay attention. One of the earliest signs appears in dreams. Jung believed that dreams are messages from the unconscious. If you frequently dream of being trapped, chased, lost, or overwhelmed after time spent with someone, take note. Your psyche is communicating. Perhaps this person isn't safe, not physically, but on a deeper psychological level. They might trigger old wounds, stir unresolved trauma, or unconsciously divert you from your true self. Another indicator is psychic energy depletion. This is not ordinary fatigue. It's a profound exhaustion that arises when you are pretending, striving to impress someone who doesn't see your true self, or forcing a connection that was never intended to endure. Over time, this kind of psychological tension can leave you feeling lost, heavy, or even depressed. You wake up exhausted, dread conversations, and find yourself becoming reactive, anxious, or emotionally numb. Your body is deeply connected to your psyche. Jung believed that being in the wrong environment or with the wrong person causes your body to express this misalignment through stomach tightness, unexplained fatigue, or persistent headaches. These are somatic signals indicating that something is out of balance. You might rationalize them thinking, "I'm just stressed," or "maybe I'm overthinking," yet often, overthinking is a way of ignoring what you already sense deep within. Projection is another common pattern, one of the shadow's favorite mechanisms. Jung explained that we frequently project unwanted aspects of ourselves onto others. If someone consistently triggers or irritates you without a clear reason, ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing reflected? Sometimes we feel rejected by others when in reality we've rejected a part of ourselves. That internal conflict manifests in the dynamics we experience. Most importantly, when someone isn't right for you, you'll sense a subtle betrayal. Not from them, but from yourself. You'll notice you're not laughing as freely. You walk on eggshells, censor your thoughts, and stop being honest, even with yourself. This happens gradually, like a slow leak from your soul. By the time you recognize it, you may have already drifted far from your authentic self. Jung didn't believe in coincidences. He spoke of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences revealing the hidden threads of life. When people leave unexpectedly, when relationships end just as they begin, or when obstacles appear that seem almost divine, perhaps they are. Something greater than your ego may be steering you away from paths that could lead to suffering, stagnation, or the loss of your true self. Yet the ego resists this truth. It clings, bargains, and tells stories like, "If only I had tried harder," or Maybe they'll change. Jung warned, what you resist not only persists, it grows stronger. Resisting the reality that someone isn't right for you doesn't make the connection real. It only prolongs the pain. And yet, this isn't just about pain. It's also about personal growth. Every individual who enters your life brings either a lesson, a reflection, or a test. Those who aren't meant for you often end up being the ones who push you to truly meet yourself. In their absence, something becomes clear. You start hearing your own voice again. You begin to remember what peace feels like. You reconnect with the natural rhythm of your being. Letting go isn't only about walking away, it's about awakening. And that awakening often begins with a subtle inner whisper. Sometimes, that quiet nudge is enough to guide you back to yourself. Often the deepest pain isn't caused by the presence of the wrong person, but by the absence of the connection you thought you shared. You may start questioning your own judgment, wondering if you misread the signs or imagined the closeness. Jung reminds us that much of what we perceive in others is shaped by our own inner world. We don't see people as they truly are. We see them as we are. Often, when someone isn't right for us, it's not because they are a villain. It's because the story itself was created from unconscious longing rather than reality. There's a pattern many fail to notice until it repeats enough to cause real pain. The urge to complete something left unresolved from childhood. Jung wrote extensively about archetypes, the primordial patterns in human experience. One of the most influential is the wounded child. When we encounter someone whose emotional energy mirrors past experiences, perhaps their silence echoes a distant parent, or their inconsistency reflects early unstable attachments, we may feel drawn to them. Often this attraction isn't rooted in love, but in an unconscious desire to heal unresolved wounds. This is the trap. We mistake familiarity for compatibility. What feels right isn't always healthy. Sometimes the clearest signal that someone isn't meant for us is that being with them drags us back into old patterns, old wounds, and earlier versions of ourselves that we've worked so hard to evolve beyond. Jung believed that life's goal is individuation, the process of becoming whole. This involves integrating the fragmented aspects of ourselves, light and shadow, conscious and unconscious, rational and intuitive. So when a relationship consistently destabilizes you, when maintaining peace costs you your center, or when you compromise your values to avoid rejection, something sacred within you is being compromised. The signs aren't always obvious. They often appear in subtle ways: a lack of interest in communication, the tension you feel at the sight of their name, or the small but persistent ways your body signals discomfort. The internal pressure to be more or less than who you truly are is not trivial. These sensations are breadcrumbs from your soul, guiding you back to your authentic self. Ignore them, and the discomfort only grows. Pay attention, and the path begins to unfold. Another sign to notice: time feels distorted. When someone is genuinely aligned with you, time expands. Even in silence, you feel a deep connection. But when someone is misaligned with your soul, time feels heavy. You check the clock constantly during conversations. Restlessness creeps in. Hours together drain you instead of energizing you. Jung might suggest that your psyche is rejecting the falseness of the connection, like wearing a mask that never quite fits. It slips, irritates, and suffocates. You may also find your creativity dwindling. Passions feel distant. This is meaningful. Jung considered creativity an expression of the unconscious mind. Losing your creative flow while entangled with someone can indicate that your deeper self is being neglected. You focus so much on managing the relationship, decoding their behavior and adjusting to fit their world, that you abandon the part of yourself that dreams, imagines, and creates a high price to pay. Even your inner voice, the one that once guided you, may start to fade. That clarity, that stillness, that knowing you relied on, becomes clouded. You begin seeking advice externally, looking for signs, doubting your own perception. This is no coincidence. It happens when your connection to your inner truth is disrupted, not because someone took it, but because unconsciously you gave it away. Why do we do this? Because we want the connection to succeed, because we see potential, because they remind us of something beautiful we once felt. But potential is not a promise, and memory is not destiny. When someone's presence silences your inner compass, it's not love, it's a warning. It's easy to judge ourselves in these moments, to feel foolish for not recognizing it sooner, to replay conversations for mistakes. But Jung encourages compassion, both for others and for ourselves. The psyche is always learning. Every wrong turn, every misaligned connection, every heartbreak contributes to becoming who we are meant to be. The real mistake is not the relationship, it's ignoring the signs once they appear. A subtle anxiety also emerges in the wrong relationship. Not fear of losing someone, but the quiet awareness that you are losing yourself. At first, it is subtle. You may hesitate to speak your truth, shrink yourself to avoid conflict, or feel invisible even when you are seen. And the most challenging part is that you may still love them, and they may still love you. Yet love alone isn't enough if it comes at the cost of your own wholeness. Sometimes those who aren't meant for us aren't bad people. They aren't toxic, abusive, or cruel. They're simply not aligned with the path your soul is taking. This is what makes letting go so difficult. You aren't just releasing a person. You're releasing a version of yourself that believed this was where you belonged. Jung noted that we encounter ourselves repeatedly in countless forms throughout life. And often, these forms appear through relationships. We may think we're meeting someone new, but what we're truly encountering is an invitation, a mirror reflecting what we've neglected within. This may call for healing an old wound, reclaiming boundaries, or learning to step away before losing ourselves entirely. Each relationship carries a hidden lesson, and once it is understood, its hold over us fades. Clarity doesn't always come through logic. Sometimes it arrives through contrast. We may not recognize someone isn't right for us because of their faults, but because of how our soul reacts to their presence. Joy starts to feel forced, laughter borrowed, and even silence, which once felt comforting, becomes suffocating. Yet the mind resists, seeking reasons, evidence, or labels for discomfort. The unconscious, however, doesn't debate. It communicates quietly through feeling. Jung highlighted that the unconscious guides us through symbols, sensations, and synchronicities, rather than linear explanations. Signs often don't appear as warnings. They show us restlessness, shifts in appetite, or repeated coincidences that only make sense when traced back to our emotions. You might miss a call and feel relief instead of anxiety, or imagine life without them and feel calm rather than grief. These aren't signs of indifference, they signal misalignment. Often the greatest threat is subtle. It doesn't manifest through betrayal or cruelty, but through the gradual erosion of your essence. You stop reading, meditating, or doing the small things that once made life meaningful. The relationship becomes a gravitational center, pulling everything else off its natural axis, and perhaps the unease you sense isn't solely personal. What if it's ancestral? Jung proposed that we carry not only our personal unconscious, but also a collective unconscious, archetypal patterns passed down through generations. This means that when someone is not meant for you, the discomfort you feel may resonate through ancestral lineages. You might be breaking a pattern your mother could not, or stepping away from a dynamic your grandmother endured silently. The tension you experience is not solely yours. Your choices can become a transformative point, not just for you, but for those who came before and those who will follow. In this sense, your suffering holds a sacred quality, as it represents the labor of something new emerging, your truth. Emotional displacement is another key concept. Being with a particular person might trigger reactions that seem exaggerated. You may cry more easily or respond defensively without understanding why. Jung would suggest that these reactions are not about the present moment, but reflect a resonance, how their energy touches unresolved wounds within you. This pain seeks expression so it can be integrated. However, integration cannot occur in an emotionally unsafe environment. True healing requires trust, and if your nervous system is constantly on alert, even when they show kindness, it signals that this is not the space where your growth can occur. Intuition can also reveal when someone is not meant for you. You may make plans, visualize a future together, or make decisions as a pair, yet something feels off. Jung described this as the tension between the persona, the social mask we wear, and the true self. When a connection relies on roles, projections, or facades, a gap emerges between the life you envision and the life you sense, generating internal anxiety regardless of how ideal things may appear externally. You might notice subtle forms of symbolic disruption. Appointments are missed, travel plans collapse, or communication breaks down at critical moments. Jung would interpret these not as mere inconveniences, but as synchronistic signals prompting you to notice what your conscious mind may be ignoring. Life often intervenes not to punish, but to protect your authenticity from a future that could compromise it. Finally, there can be a loss of rhythm in the relationship. Every connection has its own unique cadence, but when someone is not meant for you, that rhythm is absent. You and the other person remain slightly out of sync, with one constantly trying to catch up, slow down, or interpret the other. This dissonance often shows itself in emotional timing, mismatched intimacy, and even in humor. You laugh at different things, process emotions at different speeds. The effort to bridge these differences can leave you drained, not because there's superficial incompatibility, but because your energetic frequencies simply aren't aligned. Sometimes, the clearest signal is this: you begin to imagine being alone more than being with them. Not out of lack of care, but because solitude allows you to be yourself again. Deep down you realize that no connection is worth sacrificing that. Jung believed the soul has its own instincts. He called this the self, the guiding center of the psyche. The self always moves toward wholeness, even if it means ending a connection you once longed for. This is why some relationships collapse under seemingly minor pressures. The self won't let you stay in a space that limits your growth, no matter how much the ego pleads to remain. So you start to detach, not out of resentment, but out of respect for the truth. You stop resisting reality. You stop rewriting the past. You reclaim your energy from moments when you ignored your intuition. In doing so, you return to yourself, not the version shaped by fear, but the version rooted in self-respect. This isn't weakness. This is individuation. Every misaligned relationship reaches a point when silence speaks louder than words. Not the comfortable silence of shared presence, but the heavy, pregnant silence filled with avoidance, unspoken truths, subtle distance. You may sit together yet feel isolated. You speak, but your words feel empty. This silence isn't accidental. It's the unconscious communicating what the ego won't admit. Something essential is missing. Jung often suggested that we are guided not by noise, but by symbols and feelings that surface when we're misaligned. That sensation of moving through fog with someone who doesn't truly see you isn't random. It's the psyche beginning to withdraw its energy. When someone isn't right for you, your inner world pulls away before your outer world fully notices. The connection may remain externally, but internally, your soul has begun its departure. This is why the signs can feel paradoxical. You may feel love and resistance simultaneously, longing and suffocation, hope and dread. These aren't contradictions. They are signals of a deeper truth breaking through the illusion of compatibility. Jung cautioned that the psyche begins to fragment when we live in prolonged contradiction. The conscious mind constructs narratives, reasons, and justifications, while the unconscious continues to surface through your posture, tone, and dreams. This can blur your clarity and cloud your vision, not due to confusion, but because your deeper self is attempting to interrupt the story you're telling. Another indication is what Jung described as emotional echo. After conversations, you might feel as though your words bounce back, distorted and empty. When someone isn't truly aligned with you, communication stops being generative and becomes transactional. You speak to be understood, yet the deeper layers of yourself remain untouched. This creates emotional deprivation, not because others lack care, but because they cannot meet you at the depth you need. They may love you, yet fail to truly see you. That absence of genuine recognition can feel more painful than solitude. Signs often appear in your behavior around them. Jung referred to this as the adaptive persona, the mask we wear to survive in spaces that do not honor our full truth. You might notice becoming more agreeable, less expressive, or excessively rational. You start filtering yourself, laughing less freely, and speaking cautiously to avoid conflict. Over time, this self-editing becomes chronic, leaving you to gaze in the mirror and think, I don't recognize myself anymore. Yet, staying can feel easier than leaving, as if departure means abandoning a dream. In reality, remaining may mean abandoning your own self. Then comes what Jung described as the dissonance of destiny. He believed in a teleological pull, the psyche's natural movement toward wholeness. When someone is not aligned with that trajectory, life creates friction. Opportunities diminish, momentum slows, and it feels as though you're swimming against the current. It's not that they're holding you back. Rather, your soul is outgrowing the narrative you've constructed around them. This misalignment often brings heightened internal conflict, not the productive kind that stems from growth, but the draining kind that leaves you doubting every choice. Should I stay? Should I speak up? Should I wait? This mental spinning often serves as a defense mechanism, distracting you from a more unsettling truth you already sense. Knowing that truth demands action, and action risks loss. So you hesitate, not from uncertainty, but from fear of the consequences of acknowledging what you've long known. Jung explored the interplay between fate and free will, suggesting that what remains unconscious in us will govern our lives and appear as fate. So when someone seems destined to be in your life but simultaneously diminishes your spirit, ask yourself, is this fate or just an unconscious pattern repeating itself? Are you drawn to them by a higher purpose or by a familiar pain disguised as meaning? A key sign is when peace begins to feel like a distant memory. You once felt grounded, steady, and creative, yet now your nervous system remains on low-level alert. You're not in crisis, but you're rarely at ease. That persistent tension, though subtle, reshapes your entire existence. Your body is always reading the environment. When it consistently signals that something is off, even if you cannot put it into words, that is your truth reaching you. Truth does not always appear as clarity. Sometimes it comes as grief, a longing for the part of yourself you set aside to maintain a connection that never fully acknowledged you. But grief can be purifying. It clears the space where illusions once lived. In that emptiness, new things begin to stir. Intuition, desire, courage. Not the courage to salvage a relationship, but the courage to fight for yourself. This marks a turning point. It is not dramatic or loud. It is the moment you stop mistaking pain for growth, accepting love without alignment, or waiting for potential to bloom. You stop hoping they will become who you need and start remembering who you are. When someone isn't right for you, the signs may not be obvious. They whisper at first, then tap louder each time you ignore them, until the dissonance becomes impossible to dismiss. At that point, you face a choice: continue negotiating with silence or return to the truth. As Carl Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Misaligned connections are not punishments or failures. They are invitations to awaken, to see with inner vision. Not all love is meant to last, and not all loss is a step backward. Some people enter your life not to stay, but to help you reclaim parts of yourself. Once that lesson is learned, they fade, not abandonment, but transformation. If you've experienced the quiet grief of detaching from someone who wasn't right for you, notice the signs. ignored them, and finally had the courage to listen, you are not weak. You are awakening. Awakening is never painless, but it is sacred. Letting go does not break you. It makes you whole. If these words resonate even slightly, take a deep breath. You are not alone. Many are navigating the same hidden signs, the same quiet knowing, the same pull toward truth. Perhaps this message reached you because your unconscious was ready to hear it. Take a moment and share in the comments. Have you ever sensed, subtly but undeniably, that someone wasn't right for you, even if everything appeared perfect? Which sign finally woke you up? Your story may reflect what someone else needs to recognize their own truth. Your voice could be the echo another person has been waiting for. If this video touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need this message today. By bringing the unconscious to light together, we do more than heal ourselves. We awaken the collective. Thank you for being here. You are not lost. You are remembering.